The U.S. president-elect takes another shot at Canada.
They should be a state.
How Canada is responding, the lengths Donald Trump says he'll go to seize Greenland and the Panama Canal. The search for Justin Trudeau's successor, the worries about foreign interference, and how much of a difference a new leader might make. Meta dumps fact-checkers, why and what they'll be replaced with. Plus, positively delightful.
Bring on the sweet, cuddly mayhem!
The teddy bear toss melting a world record.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. He takes office in 13 days, but U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is already setting the tone for his presidency and trolling the rest of the world, including Canada. In a wide-ranging news conference today, Trump refused to rule out using military force to take control of the Panama Canal and Greenland. He promised to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, and he threatened to use economic force to erase the border between Canada and the U.S. There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States, was the response from Canada's Prime Minister. And from the Leader of the Opposition, Canada will never be the 51st state, period. What Trump is trying to accomplish is not clear. The Prime Minister is convening an in-person meeting with the premiers next week. And as Mercedes Stephenson reports, right now it is the premiers leading the charge.
President-elect Donald Trump's rhetoric about Canada becoming the 51st state reached a new level on Tuesday.
Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like.
Economic force to dissolve the border. A significant change from what both the Trump and Trudeau teams initially dismissed as a joke told over dinner at Mar-a-Lago that became a meme. In an hour-long press conference, Trump vowed substantial tariffs on Canada and aired his grievances.
We are not treated well, as you know, by Canada.
Trade, the border, and Canada's lackluster defense spending and military capabilities were all on his list.
They don't essentially have a military. They have a very small military.
Trump also took aim at the auto sector.
We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit.
Experts say trying to divorce the Canadian and U.S. auto sector would be damaging to both sides of the economy. The industry works more on car parts being shipped back and forth as vehicles are constructed, not single cars being built and shipped. But it has been Premier Doug Ford who has been front and center in taking on Trump in the U.S. public eye.
I can appreciate his sense of humor, and I kind of went back about buying Alaska, but, you know, something is just not realistic. We're a sovereign country. We're proud. Canadians, just like Americans, are proud. Ford
says when it comes to trade, Trump is picking the wrong target.
I'll tell you who the problem is. China's the problem.
Trump's trade deficit argument is often debunked by experts who point out it's generated in part by U.S. purchases of Canadian energy and agriculture. What is clear? Canadians are pushing back.
Canadians are proud. I'm proud to be Canadian. We are not becoming the 51st state.
BC's premier says he and other premiers will meet later this week, and they plan to go to Washington to make their case in person about why tariffs would hurt Americans as much as Canadians. Mercedes, we know from his first 4 years in office that Trump is a bully. He makes threats. He likes to goad people. How do Canadian officials who dealt with him last time think he should be handled now?
Well, as much as I think a lot of Canadians are shocked that this question about taking over Canada would ever even be seriously asked or answered at a press conference with the president-elect, Canadian officials who've worked closely with Trump before are not particularly surprised, although they see it as an escalation. I spoke to David McNaughton, who is Canada's ambassador to the United States during Trump's first term and an advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He said this is typical of Trump, who smells blood in the water with the political crisis Justin Trudeau is facing up here in Canada. But he believes that he's made a strategic error and that by challenging Canada in this way, as he did today, Canadians are more united now than they were 48 hours ago in pushing back against Donald Trump. Donna?
Okay, Mercedes Stephenson, thank you. Donald Trump's son, Donald Jr., went to Greenland today. A little later, we'll explain what he's up to and why his dad wants to take over that island. But first, here in Canada, the federal Liberal Party needs to pick a new leader to replace Justin Trudeau and needs to do it fast. There are still things that have to be decided, but the rules that are in place now on who can vote for the new leader are the least stringent of all the federal parties. That leaves the Liberal leadership race vulnerable to the potential of foreign interference. Mackenzie Gray explains.
Well, the rules aren't set to replace Justin Trudeau, Donna, but the Liberal Party is poised to allow people who can't vote in the next federal election to be eligible to pick the next Prime Minister.
When the Constitution was written for the party, the foreign interference, as we know it now, was not as big of a concern. But things have changed.
Liberal MP Yasser Naqvi's worry based on how the Liberal Party accepts new members. Head to their website, say you're over 14, provide a Canadian address, and you're officially a Liberal. No payment required. That means over 3 million non-permanent residents in Canada, including international students and temporary foreign workers, would be allowed to vote in the upcoming leadership race.
I will be encouraging our party executive to make sure that we have all the rules in place to ensure there is no foreign interference.
But the party seems unwilling to change eligibility requirements. Our open and inclusive process ensures we hear from more people in the communities we engage with, the party said in a statement, a sentiment backed by a former party president who believes a short leadership race will make it harder for foreign actors to impact.
We have the technology that enables you to verify identification and totally avoid any risk of foreign interference.
The Liberal Party has been subject to foreign interference claims previously. Global News reported CSIS had intelligence that the Chinese consulate in Toronto allegedly helped bus in international students to vote in the 2019 Don Valley North Liberal nomination meeting. The interim report from the Public Inquiry into Foreign Interference said there was, quote, strong indications that students likely voted for the consulate's preferred candidate. Foreign interference in a national race, a possibility, according to a former head of CSIS.
There may be some pathways that still exist where people who have connections to foreign governments might still have some influence in the process.
The NDP and Conservatives both require payment and for someone to be a permanent resident or Canadian citizen to join their party, Donna. Much stricter rules compared to the Liberals, who will discuss their leadership race further tomorrow when their caucus meets.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray, thank you. Whoever replaces Justin Trudeau will face an uphill battle regaining public support for the Liberals, but will a new leader make a difference? Eric Sorensen is looking into that.
Would the former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney make a difference? Would Christy Clark, the former BC Premier? Or would any of Justin Trudeau's cabinet ministers turn the Liberal Party around? Does Trudeau's exit change the election equation?
Given how much fatigue with Trudeau himself, how tired Canadians were of him, will no doubt breathe a little bit of life back into the party.
A new poll taken Monday night after Trudeau's announcement shows the Conservatives with a big 17-point lead, but the Liberals did close the gap by about 5 points. Now, it's just one quick poll, but a sign of what can begin to happen when a party in power replaces an unpopular leader.
Pierre Trudeau now arriving on the stage.
Before Pierre Trudeau stepped down after 15 years in office, the Liberals trailed by 12 points in a Gallup poll. But after John Turner took over, the Liberals went ahead by 9 points. A decade later, Brian Mulroney, after 9 years in office, was trailing by almost 30 points. When Kim Campbell won the leadership, she briefly jumped into the lead ahead of Jean Chrétien. Campbell and Turner were both trounced in the elections.
Gee, I'm glad I didn't sell my car.
But the change of leaders did demonstrate Canadians' willingness to take a fresh look. And Liberals hope that some voters now boosting Conservative Pierre Poilievre's poll numbers could return to the Liberal fold.
This is an anti-Trudeau vote going to the anti-Trudeau place. And I think there's good reason to believe for the Liberal Party that if you replace Trudeau with somebody compelling, that a lot of those voters can come back.
But Trudeau's departure may be more akin to U.S. President Joe Biden's. He left Kamala Harris and the Democrats too little time to overtake Donald Trump. Liberal contenders also face a short campaign, potentially divisive, that could be followed almost immediately by an election.
It's going to be a very telescoped, very frantic, very trying period of time for anybody who goes into that job.
And there is the wild card of a new U.S. president promising big tariffs on Canada that could keep the current Prime Minister in the news, whether the Liberal Party likes it or not. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Our chief political correspondent, David Aiken, is with me now. David, you've been working the phones today. Do Liberal MPs believe they have a better chance to beat Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives without Justin Trudeau as leader? What are they telling you?
Well, they're realistic, Donna. They know that there is no data point in any poll over the last 2 years that would indicate that simply changing leaders would reverse Liberal fortunes. And remember, the Conservatives have led the Liberals by 20 points or more for more than a year in dozens of polls. Now, elections do matter and things could change, but Liberal MPs are telling me that they've been doing polling in their own ridings and that there was no way they could campaign for a party led by Justin Trudeau, and that any leader, it doesn't matter who, would give them a better chance. Now, for the party as a whole, there was a danger that it could end up as the third or fourth party in the House of Commons, behind both the Bloc Québécois and the NDP. The Liberals right now hold 152 seats, and with Trudeau leading them, they were looking at losing as many as 120 seats. Think of that, 120 out of 152. Now, with a new leader, and again, it really doesn't matter who, they may only lose 80 or 90 seats, and that is enough, Liberals hope, to get official opposition status. And that is really what the Liberal MPs that I'm talking to believe is the most realistic objective. None believe there is some messiah out there who can beat Poilievre and the Conservatives in the spring election that will soon be upon us. Donna.
Lots of drama ahead. David Aiken in Ottawa, thank you. The federal government says changes to capital gains tax will go ahead, even though they weren't passed by Parliament, and it's now prorogued. The change was introduced in the 2024 budget. It raises the portion of capital gains on which companies pay tax to 2/3 from 1/2, as well as for individuals with capital gains of $250,000 per year. The CRA has a standard practice of applying legislation as soon as it's proposed, meaning the higher tax rate will apply until Parliament resumes, and the government signals it does not intend to move forward with the changes. As Silicon Valley prepares for a return to a Trump presidency, Meta has announced it's getting rid of its fact checkers. Founder Mark Zuckerberg says it will dramatically reduce what he calls the amount of censorship on Facebook and Instagram and help prioritize free speech. Critics complain it sends the message that facts don't matter. And as Neetu Garcha reports, that Zuckerberg is just trying to keep Trump happy.
Fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announcing major changes to its content moderation. Over the coming months, it's scrapping its U.S. fact-checking program in place since 2016 and rolling out new changes across its platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and Threads.
What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas.
Zuckerberg says a new feature called Community Notes, similar to the one introduced by X, will replace traditional fact-checking partners. The company also plans to remove restrictions on topics like immigration and gender, and its moderation teams are being moved from California to Texas.
Get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse.
President-elect Donald Trump welcomed the move, saying Meta has come a long way.
My initial reaction was I was enraged, and frankly, I think we all should be. This decision by Meta is a siren call to end users everywhere, both in the US and Canada, that big tech companies are leaving the business of moderation.
Tech industry analyst Carmi Levy says it's clear the changes are politically motivated.
Technology companies like Meta and Google and even Apple, the CEOs of these companies have been making pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago to speak with President-elect Trump.
When asked if Zuckerberg was making these changes in response to Trump's threats of life in prison, Trump said that is probably the case. Meta has also announced 3 new board members, including UFC CEO and Trump ally Dana White.
The U.S. has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world.
Meta confirmed to Global News the changes are limited to the U.S. for now, but expansion to other countries is planned. Levy warns it's more important than ever for users to be vigilant, critically evaluating the information they encounter before engaging with or sharing it in this new era of content moderation. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
California on alert coming up. The windstorm fueling a raging wildfire. More than 30,000 residents in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood of Los Angeles are under evacuation order. A fast-moving brush fire started this morning and has exploded, fanned by the Santa Ana winds. It is whipping through the affluent neighborhood at a dangerous pace. Thousands of households and structures are threatened. Many have already been damaged. No injuries have been reported, but firefighters say it is a life-threatening situation.
We are not out of danger. The National Weather Service has predicted that the winds are going to pick up and get worse.
Most significant winds are expected between 10 tonight and 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. Greenland got a visitor today who claims he's just a tourist, but his name is Donald Trump Jr., and his dad wants to take over the place. It's not the first time Trump has suggested Greenland should belong to the U.S., except that it's a Danish territory, and Denmark's Prime Minister says it is not for sale. Jackson Prosco looks at what Trump is up to in Greenland.
There was nothing subtle about Donald Trump Jr.'s visit to Greenland. Touching down in his father's iconic jet, he tried to pass it off as mere sightseeing.
Just here as tourists, seeing it, looks like an incredible place we've been talking about going for a while.
But the autonomous Danish territory has captured the imagination of the incoming U.S. president.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes.
In Florida, Donald Trump made it clear he wants the sprawling island for America.
People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up.
It's not the first time Trump has proposed buying Greenland.
It's a large real estate deal.
But his territorial ambitions have only grown louder and more alarming. He refused to rule out using the military to take both Greenland and the Panama Canal, after threatening economic coercion to force a union with Canada.
There has been a pattern throughout Donald Trump's career in politics and in business to ask for very extreme things in the hopes that something less unreasonable will be part of an eventual compromise.
If it's a negotiating tactic, Denmark, a NATO ally, isn't impressed. Only Greenland can decide Greenland's future, said the Danish PM.
I would be surprised that if the majority of Greenlanders want to replace dependency on Denmark with dependency on the US.
Not that Trump seems to care.
I'm talking about protecting the free world.
Vexing world leaders who wonder how they'll manage an unpredictable American president who's supposed to be an ally.
You want an easy way to deal with Donald Trump? Good luck with that.
Still unknown is what Trump actually wants from these sovereign nations, or if any compromise would actually satisfy him. Until he takes office, it's all a mystery with incredibly high stakes. Donna?
All right, Jackson Prosco in Washington, thanks. The casket of former U.S. President Jimmy Carter is now lying in state in Washington, D.C. after tributes in his home state of Georgia. Carter's flag-draped casket made its way to the U.S. Capitol, where the body of the 39th American president will lie in state before his funeral on Thursday. Carter died on December 29th. He was 100 years old. Desperate search for survivors ahead, the destruction after a powerful earthquake in Tibet. They are searching for survivors in Tibet after a powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake. More than 120 people are known to have died. Dozens more are injured. Powerful aftershocks are being felt in neighboring Nepal, including the capital Kathmandu, as well as in Bhutan and northern India. Vincent McAvenny reports on the challenges search crews face.
In this supermarket at the foothills of the Himalayas, shoppers were forced to flee just after 9 a.m. as the quake began. With a magnitude of 7.1, whole buildings shook. Oh my God! Some ran out onto the streets as homes collapsed into rubble, burying hundreds. People in this remote Tibetan region near Mount Everest are used to seismic activity, but this was one of the strongest quakes in the last century, prompting a large-scale response. Emergency workers and military personnel desperately waded through debris to try to dig out survivors. Hampering their efforts, the short winter daylight and temperatures set to drop below -8 overnight.
We aim to understand the disaster situation in each village and locate trapped individuals to provide preliminary reports for the larger rescue teams.
As they try to reach the hundreds of injured survivors, they're having to contend with destroyed roads and dozens of aftershocks. with tremors being felt as far away as neighbouring India and Nepal, though with no reports of major damage or deaths.
A magnitude 7 earthquake is the big event, and that there will then be a number of smaller earthquakes that could occur for days, weeks, perhaps even months, depending on whether or not the geology around the fault has actually settled down.
Both power and water have been disrupted in the Tibetan region. China's President Xi Jinping has urged proper resettlement of those affected and called for the strengthening of early warning systems. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Next, a big goal triggers a record haul for charity at this teddy bear toss.
Dubé motoring in, drops it off, Scarbosa shoots, and scores! Bring on the sweet, cuddly mayhem!
It was a teddy bear avalanche in Hershey, Pennsylvania on Sunday night, and it has now been confirmed as a new world record. It's a tradition of the Hershey Bears in the American Hockey League. They collected 102,343 stuffed toys during their teddy bear toss this year, beating their previous record of just under 75,000. The toys, donated by the sold-out crowd, will be given to local charities. In BC, a 4-year underwater stakeout of a sea sponge has revealed it has character. Researchers used 8 cameras to shoot rare footage of the baseball-sized animal nicknamed Belinda. Hundreds of hours of video were captured from 2012 to 2015. It showed lots of cool things, including that the sponge can change color and sneeze, sometimes every day, to clear out debris. It also twitches and flinches and tolerates intrusive sea creatures. The aim was to study the sponge's response to changing ocean conditions, such as water quality and temperature. Divers recently confirmed Belinda is healthy and back to its original color. That is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the Rideau Canal in Ottawa. It's cold enough now that crews are out flooding the frozen canal with a layer of water and have started to prepare the ice for skating. The world's largest natural rink is expected to open before the end of the month. Fingers crossed. Thanks for watching and hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.